Tonight, Nobel laureate Professor Soyinka warns against the ongoing killings in Nigeria, calls for the emergence of a new generation of leaders. Search for a solution to insecurity in the country continues as President Muhammadu Buhari meets with security chiefs behind closed doors in Abuja. Gambian President Adama Barrow makes case for effective post-conflict peace building in Nigeria, asks security forces to remain professional. An international community calls for restraint in Zimbabwe following the announcement as soldiers patrol streets of Harare.
On business news tonight, federal government announces release of 140 billion naira out of 500 billion naira budgeted for its social investment program in 2017.
On sports news, host team Nigeria clinched 2 gold medals on day 2 of the African Senior Athletics Championships in Asaba, Delta State.
The Nobel laureate Professor Soyinka has condemned the current administration's handling of the security situation in the country. He, however, believes that a lot can still be done to salvage the situation before 2019. The Nobel laureate engaged in an interactive session on the subjects raised in his new book titled "Who is Watching the Watchmen?", which centered largely around former President Olusegun Obasanjo's administration. Speakers at the event delved into some critical contemporary issues like the defection, impeachment, and the politics of 2019. Our political correspondent, Seun Okinbaloye, tells us more.
It is an atmosphere designed to elicit some intellectual discourse as Professor Soyinka presents a new book, the latest and the 9th in his intervention series. But before the conversation got underway, his opening remarks is about the latest events in Benue State since the governor Samuel Ortom left the APC for the PDP.
I do not believe that somebody like Ortom, the governor of one of the beleaguered states in this nation, should be crucified by any force, any power, any interest whatsoever for taking a decision irrespective of whether one approves or disapproves of the party to which he's decamping, to use the favorite word.
One of the panelists, right activist Falana, has strong views on the Benue impeachment matter, especially when the minority moves to remove a governor.
The Supreme Court said no. The governor was elected by the entire state. So if you have declared some seats vacant legally, you must conduct by-elections so that every constituency in that state will participate in the removal of their governor since they elected it in the first place.
Although the main subject of the new book is the concerns about the happenings in the Obasanjo administration, but the Nobel laureate is unhappy with the security situation presently in the country.
There's a cheapening of lives, the value of lives in the last year or so on a level which we haven't witnessed for a very long time.
The senior advocate of Nigeria on the panel, Mr. Falana, believes the attorney generals of the state affected by the killings across the country have a lot to do to stop the crisis.
Killings that are going on have continued because of official impunity. Culpable homicide or murder is a state offense. No governor has the excuse to go to the television and be crying. You must, as the chief executive of your state, direct your attorney general to prosecute all those who have been arrested by the police, and let anybody in Abuja say, no, it's not your power, since 1999. And you can quote me on this.
Professor Soyinka has concerns for the 2019 election season, and here is his advice for voters.
That we all do as much ground clearing as possible to pave the way for a new generation of rulers in this nation.
And also a piece of advice to the APC-led government.
Between now and 2019, an opportunity still exists. There can be reform, there can be total overturn, whatever it takes to secure the nation and give us a renewed sense of dignity, of humanity, just recovering something which we know we once had.
It was indeed a conversation which elicits a lot of reactions, some of which are perhaps too much to compress in a news report. But some of the sound bites here might inspire some decisions ahead of the critical 2019 elections.
The Chargé d'Affaires of the U.S. Embassy in Nigeria, Mr. David Young, has identified reprisal attacks as one of the factors spurring the violence in some parts of the country. To reduce this, Mr. Young believes stakeholders across the country must not only condemn the violence, but set up peace-building mechanisms in all affected communities. He was a guest on our breakfast program, Sunrise Daily.
It is absolutely critical that in order to prevent cycles of violence from escalating, like in Plateau State, like in Zamfara, it's critically important that individual people, leaders and average people, speak out for peace, that they be advocates to try to prevent the cycles of violence to escalate once someone is killed from one community or the other. What we see far too tragically, we've seen this in Jos historically in 2001, 2008, more recently. We've seen it today in Zamfara, we see it in Plateau, other places. When somebody gets killed from one side, the aggrieved group strikes back with terrible reprisals. And that's one of the things that's fueled the back and forth reprisal attacks. To break that cycle, it's essential that religious leaders, traditional leaders, government officials, community leaders, youth leaders, women's groups, people speak out and say, we will not stand for this. We are committed to peace because, as Gandhi once said, an eye for an eye leaves the whole world blind.
Staying with security matters, President Muhammadu Buhari has been meeting with security chiefs over recent attacks in some parts of the country. The closed-door meeting, which lasted for about 3 hours, discussed plans to prevent future security incidences in Zamfara, Sokoto and Biringwari axis. In a statement after the meeting, the Ministry of Defense says Operation Sharandaji would be extended to the Niger border. Security agencies have also directed to increase patrol around the Abuja-Kaduna highway to reduce criminal activities, while the Minister of Defense, Mansour Dan Ali, has requested for more equipment for the armed forces. A coordinated intelligence system has been suggested as a crucial way to reduce insecurity across the country. The Minister of Interior, Abdurrahman Dambazao, who made the suggestion, believes that the nature of criminal violence in Nigeria cannot be nipped in the bud without an intelligence strategy that would suit the country and deliver the much-needed results. The minister explains that with better intelligence, government will be able to reconstruct and resettle refugees.
This is an emergency security meeting of all law enforcement agencies convened by the Minister of the Interior, Abdurrahman Dambazao. In attendance are personnel from the Nigerian Armed Forces, the police, civil defense, prison service, immigration, customs and other law enforcement agencies. The meeting is coming against the backdrop of recent cases of armed banditry, farmers-herders clashes, and continued suicide bombings in the northeast.
Your Excellencies,
to kickstart the meeting, the Minister of Interior outlines the reasons for the meeting.
In the last few years, sectarian and communal conflicts, including farmers and pastoralist feuds, have claimed hundreds of lives and property across Nigeria. Indeed, violent ethnic rivalry has cumulatively polarized Nigerians and rendered many parts of the country unsafe for habitation or even safe passage due to fierce ethnic xenophobia arising from the precarious state of personal security.
He recommends intelligence gathering as a way out.
I believe that the takeoff point for tackling insecurity in Nigeria is intelligence, actionable intelligence for that matter. We are not dealing with conventional threats, but peculiar threats that are laced with terrorism, sabotage, and efforts to manipulate our society's fault lines of religion and ethnicity.
In order to achieve the desired result, a central and controlled intelligence unit and methodology for fighting criminal violence in Nigeria is also recommended.
There are a lot of information from the police, from the state security service, from the military, from civil defense, but they are not analyzed together. There has to be a center for crime analysis. If you take the case of AK-47 alone, you find out occurring everywhere. Why? There is no single agency or unit that analyzes the issues. I think it's very important if we can do that.
This meeting is expected to usher in a new strategy to tackle the rising cases of insecurity in all parts of the country. Amaka Okafu, Channels Television News.
The president of the Gambia has also lent his voice to the security challenges facing Nigeria and some other African countries. Mr. Adama Barrow is suggesting that the country should involve local communities in its peace-building process. The Gambian president also noted that security forces must always be professional and submissive to democratic authority to achieve effective post-conflict peace. Our correspondent, Terry Kumi, reports that he mentioned this at the graduation lecture of the Nigerian Defense College in Abuja, where he was the guest speaker.
President Adama Barrow arrives at the National Defense College for the course 26 graduation lecture. He is received by the commandant of the National Defense College and moves to inspect the Guard of Honor. With the killings across Nigeria, the need for post-conflict peace building has become very important to allow communities and individuals live peacefully and prevent a repeat of the conflict. That forms the basis of this lecture, with the topic, Democracy Principles and Post-Conflict Peace Building, Imperatives for the West Africa Sub-Region.
A major concern of the international community in today's world is the restoration of peace in societies afflicted by conflict and crisis. This is because democracy is considered to be a form of government with proven potentials to provide citizens with the most freedom, most opportunities, and the greatest prosperity, as well as sustainable and long-lasting peace.
President Adama Barrow takes to the podium as the guest speaker. He canvasses respect for democracy and the role of security forces in a democracy.
All citizens must lawfully have a voice and have the freedom and the right to form and belong to political parties and participate in free, fair, open elections. The professional security forces need to accept their subordination in policy and resource allocation to the civil authority and refrain from engaging in divisive activities.
The Gambian president also outlined peace-building solutions to post-conflict.
There is need to ensure that the local population is involved in design, implementation, and administration of peace-building projects to ensure continuity and success even after the conflict. Confidence and trust are essential in post-conflict peace building, and both are easily built if communities are approached by their own reputable people in a manner that is traditionally accepted.
Peace building is an intervention method designed to prevent the resumption of violent conflict by creating sustainable peace. Without peace and security, there can be no sustained development, as violence is one of the most profound development challenges. Terry Ikumi, Channels Television News.
In part two, after the break, we take a further look at Nigeria's security challenge, and we have a security expert, Professor Amechi Wokolo, to discuss this. Plus, the chairman appeals court order seeking his arrest for alleged contempt of court. Join us again.